Two scientists working on a new jet propulsion experiment have died. One is seemingly an accident. One, an outright murder. The case centers around a young janitor with severe mental disabilities. Could he really have done this?
This is not happening.
Hello and welcome to This Is Not Happening, another X-Files podcast.
Icarus Project?
The next generation in jet engine design, capable of doubling current supersonic speeds using half the fuel, at least in theory.
And Ronald Cernow was an aeronautical scientist who worked on it here at the university.
Yes.
How close are they?
I'm not sure, but Cernow's the second scientist on the team to die in the last 6 months.
Okay, but how is this an X-File? Mulder, you don't think this has anything to do with UFO technology?
There's something unexplainable here, Scully, but it's certainly not unidentifiable. Keats?
Yeah.
Dr. Keats?
Looks like they held okay.
We're with the FBI. I'm Agent Mulder. This is Agent Scully. We understand you discovered Dr. Cernow this morning.
What was left of him?
How do you suppose he became trapped in the wind tunnel?
Someone must have shut him in. The door can only be opened or locked from in there.
By computer.
We've already been through this with the police. How many times do we have to rehash it?
Another member of your team died a short time ago, isn't that correct?
Yes. Arthur Green. He was killed in an automobile accident in November. I'm Frank Nolette. I'm also on the project.
Are you certain it was an accident?
What are you driving at?
Your work seems to be a perfect target for industrial espionage.
Who wrote this?
Ron was working on it when I left.
You see, the handwriting here doesn't seem to match any of the other handwriting on the board.
It isn't mine.
What about Roland Fuller?
Roland's the janitor.
Well, according to the police report, he was the only other person here last night.
Roland didn't do that.
How do you know?
Let's just say Roland isn't exactly a rocket scientist.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned in to This Is Not Happening, another X-Files podcast. I am your host, Mike.
Hello, world. This is our podcast.
Okay. We're really Roland.
Nope, didn't work. Didn't work. Can't use the thing to be the thing. We could roll in to talking about Roland.
So, if you haven't guessed, we are talking about Roland. It's very strange to think that we're going to be done with 2 seasons real quick here.
And we'll never talk about them again. Never watch them again either.
Never.
That's right. They're dead to us now.
Well, this episode is written by Chris Rupenthal, who also did
3.
Yeah. So he shot high the first time. And then this one's directed by David Nutter. And it's pretty obvious because there's a lot of cool stuff going on in this one, camera-wise, I think.
I mean, if we're talking about a compassionate and honest portrayal of somebody with, I'm guessing, Down syndrome or I'm not sure. They don't really say.
Autism,
yeah, well,
maybe.
I mean,
I don't
autism, it's more of a behavioral disability, I think. Yeah, but I think this is, like, I know a couple of folks with Down syndrome, and that really is the note I think they were drawing from. And in addition to Jelko Ivanek's performance, the woman who's playing Tracy, who we'll see again in later episodes, she's going to be a regular.
God, what are you doing?
Oh,
No,
well,
no,
okay.
Hold on.
Pardon me.
Cut, Andrew. You can't phone it in for your puns and then take my job.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. Do we see her again in future episodes?
Record scratch.
Fair enough.
Yes, we do see her again in Too Shy. She is the concerned neighbor of the woman who goes to meet Mr. Too Shy.
Well, I think she has a much better performance, a bigger performance in this episode. And so all that to say, they do a good job. And yeah, definitely it's all about Jelko Ivanek. And if he couldn't bring this home, it would have been a terrible episode. It would have been very condescending.
Yeah. And I think X-Files really cares about certain subjects where it's like, we know this can come off either great or offensive. And he just does such a phenomenal job that it's like, you can't help but really admire what he did here. So I think it just helps this episode tremendously.
Well, I think it's safe to say that when you hire good actors, you get great results. Like, look at Beyond the Sea.
Yeah,
I mean, that
very much so.
in the hands of another actor would be a lesser episode, but he took that role and just shot it out of the park. And the same is true in Roland, I think.
Okay. Balls in hands. Filleting. Okay. Open at the Mahan Propulsion Lab. There is delicate piano playing as the camera focuses on a mentally handicapped janitor. He tries to use his ID card and password to enter a secure door. Another scientist rudely interrupts him and corrects him, knocking over his mop, leaving him to pick it up. He keys in the password and swipes his card for him. We cut into a jet engine testing. Two scientists are conducting the test and yelling about increasing velocity and what the test can actually handle. They obviously disagree with each other. The scientist that dissents is Ronald Surnow, who is Matthew Walker, who plays a more prominent role in Gethsemane as Arlinsky. He shuts the test down, exclaiming he's saving 4 years of their work. The other man is Frank Nolette, and he says if they don't make progress, they will pull the plug. It's a standard blueprint for creating suspicion when, a crime's about to occur. Two men at odds with the same goal. Never good. The man who wanted the test to go on leaves the room and is supported by yet another scientist, Dr. Keats. He is played by Gary Davey, who appears in other episodes as well, including Endgame.
Oh, we got a cast reunion here, eh? Don't we?
We do. There's a couple. Surnow states he wants to break Mach 15 and he sees the goal, but is cautious of moving forward so fast because he cares about the science, not about getting his name in the paper. So it gets a little heated. And he says, if you guys want to go down in flames together, fine, but I'm going to continue to work.
So, you know who didn't care about the science? The writer. Because Mach 15, like, I understand that they need to give the audience something to follow along with, but Mach 15 is a measure of speed. And I feel like what they were really testing for is sort of output power from this engine, right? Like how much power it could right. create. So, like, how fast it can go depends on the plane they put it on.
Yes, I do see your point.
It's like the Millennium Falcon being able to do the Kessel Run in 6 parsecs or whatever, and they talk about it like it's speed, but that's a measure of distance. But
yeah,
anyway, it makes for a convenient little number. It gives us a little, like, the scene that's going to follow is going to give us the number problem. Like, if you get to this number, you die.
Right.
But I'll have issues with this scene too. I'm sorry. I'm going to mess this episode up that you love, because I got issues.
No, hey, it's great. It's fine. So Dr. Keats leaves the room in a huff, and Surnow begins more calculations as Roland is also in the room. Surnow, now frustrated, pecks some keys and a sealed door to the test chamber opens. He walks inside and works at a terminal on the far wall. Suddenly, the door behind him electronically seals. Uh-oh. He tries to speak to Roland through the viewing window. Roland has begun typing things on the keyboard, and the wind channel opens. Surnow, now in disbelief, because he realizes the test is starting, starts getting really anxious. We see the engine start rotating and the speed tick up faster and faster. Surnow is now desperate. He can't keep his footing, so he makes his way to a mesh lining in front of the channel, and he holds on for dear life. His feet lift off the ground, and he is now screaming for help. Roland continues to work by writing calculations in marker on the room's whiteboard, intercut with scenes of Surnow losing his grip. The camera cuts to inside the viewing control room so we can see through the window. Roland leaves the frame for a moment, and we see Surnow zip past the window into the engine with a big splat. Roland now has his mop and begins working again, as if nothing happened. Credit.
You know what this scene reminds me of? Ghost in the Machine, where Scully's in the vent and the fan. Like, that's what we should have had.
Only this is a little bit more terrifying.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, that's a fan.
So opener, what do you think? Aside from the science.
Love the performance. Love the performance, hate the science. Have a bit of an issue with the death, too, because...
There would be blood everywhere.
I feel like, well... I feel like you could wedge yourself into the corner of that room.
That's what I was thinking.
And
That's funny.
You'd be fine.
Okay.
I wouldn't go to the end so I can dramatically be hoisted up. Then it looks super compelling. Don't get me wrong, but why would you do that?
I mean,
you're gonna die
in the moment. I don't know if I would huddle in the corner right next to that thing. I mean, it is curved, so maybe you couldn't huddle up quite as snugly as we might think, but
well, the conceit of the episode is you go in that room and the fan turns on, you're going to die. That's clearly what the episode is telling us. But
yeah,
I don't know if I begin to peel back the layers of that onion. I got to imagine there's an emergency valve to turn it off if you're inside. Like, why on earth would you create a death trap like that? And have no safety features on the inside. Actually, it's bearing other DNA from Ghost in the Machine, where you can lock yourself into a bathroom and get electrocuted.
Right. I understand what you're saying. But that's assuming corporate America gives a shit about that, which they do not all the time. They make these kinds of mistakes all the time, I'm sure.
Apparently, you're right. Corporate America, always cutting safety protocols in search of the bottom dollar.
Yeah. How can we do this the fastest and cheapest? Okay, so we come back from credits. Mulder and Scully arrive on the scene with some small talk. The Icarus project, capable of doubling speed using half the fuel. That is the goal of this. Scully's learning the details of the case, and Mulder relays that he's the second scientist on the project to die in 6 months. Poor Cernow. She asks how it's an X-File, but he assures her it's not about UFOs, so she can at least hang her hat on that. They enter the engine room. The door can only be opened and closed from inside the control room. Nolette introduces himself, explaining how Arthur Grable died. The first scientist, by the way. He was in a car accident. Scully asks if it was an accident, and Keats gets bothered by the insinuation that someone did something to him.
A plot nugget which will never come out.
I think it's a good point initially, I mean, it's a good question.
I do too. Yeah.
This work is a good candidate for industrial espionage, she says. Suddenly, Mulder notices something on the whiteboard. The bottom line of equations looks different than the others. He checks the log of people in the building, and only one who could have written it is a man called Roland. And of course, the scientist scoffs, saying there's no way he could have done it. And they kind of gloss over the, I'm sure, indelicate description of Roland by the other scientists.
Well, we've had the whole intro of Roland unable to use his key card and passcode to get into the room to
I know, it was just the way Dr. Keats is like, let's just say he's not a rocket scientist.
Which is amusing because they're talking about Mach 15 engine turbines.
Yeah. They could have dug a little deeper for a different joke, but...
Let's just say he's not the smartest fellow in the room.
We cut to the halfway house. Roland is making a cute sign with the name Tracy, his good friend, covered in stars. And as we stated earlier, this is Carrie Sandomirsky, who appears in Too Shy. She loves his little creation for her. A caretaker enters, telling Roland he has some guests, and takes Tracy away. Mulder and Scully, of course, come in with some questions. They ask him if he saw any strangers at work. Did the doctors do anything unusual? Roland's putting stars on paper with numbers written on it. They clock that. Obviously, he likes stars, and he tells Scully she has 147 stars on her scarf, telling the audience he's good with numbers. Which, if we didn't catch that first scene.
Point of order, Your Honor. Rain Man released in 1988.
Yes.
So definitely picking up where they dropped off.
There's a lot of that going on. And I think the Savant thing is pretty popular in Hollywood at this time. Good Will Hunting comes out either right after this or just before it. I can't remember.
That's a good point.
But yeah, so this is a common concept, at least in the...
1997 for Good Will Hunting.
Oh, so a few years after then.
A few years after. But they probably saw Roland and they're like, oh.
We got to do that.
Boston accent. I got an idea for a movie.
Boy.
Not a good accent.
Roland gets some flashes of Dr. Keats dead, having been frozen by liquid nitrogen on his face. Roland is obviously disturbed, knocks over his jar of stars to the ground. He immediately begins picking them up and counting them. While this is happening, Mulder snatches the sheet of paper he was writing on without anyone noticing. The caretaker comes in and starts to console Roland and immediately assumes Mulder and Scully did something awful to this to this man. It's like, what did you say to upset him so?
What did you say to him? Yeah, and ironically enough, when they come back later, she's going to refer to them as nice people.
Exactly. That's the very next time she's on screen. Oh, these people are sweet.
It's fine. It was just a misunderstanding that they were assholes before. Now they're nice.
So we cut to the FBI regional in Seattle. The handwriting expert is agreeing with them that the writing on the bottom of the whiteboard is indeed from a fourth individual, but they have yet to identify who it is. She excludes the doctors, and Mulder hands her the sheet he stole from Roland. Yes, stole. He stole a poor boy's drawing and creation for his own selfish needs.
Good point.
I feel bad for Roland. Like I couldn't do that even if there was a murder investigation. Like I can't take
Not
this
nice
from this
at all.
guy.
I think that Mulder could do that.
I do believe he could do that. Scully's doubtful, but Mulder reiterates he was the only other person in the building, so it has to be Roland. But unfortunately, the analyst agrees that it is not him, and Mulder, he gets that little look on his face like, God damn it, why can't it be paranormal yet?
Why can't I just be right?
Yeah, why can't I be right immediately?
Why do you ladies got to gang up on me and show that I'm wrong? Why can't I just be right?
Are you on the same cycle yet?
Wow, you jumped there pretty quick, Mike. That was good.
I didn't. That was
written in the episode, right? It was subtext.
Mulder. So we cut to Roland. It's the middle of the night, and he's having nightmares about the same thing. Keats with liquid nitrogen all over his face. He jolts himself awake, sweating, and he gets out of bed. Now we cut to the propulsion lab. Keats is there working late. We see the nearby door blink and hear numbers being entered. As Keats works, we see feet approach him. He turns and is surprised by Roland, who hits him with glass, drags him over to the liquid nitrogen tanks, and dunks his head in there, creating the image we saw only moments ago. He drops him, and we hear what sounds like glass shattering. No more head.
So, point of order, Your Honor, Terminator 2 Judgment Day was released in 1991.
Correct.
You got to get your influences from somewhere. And
you can't put it past them. I always enjoy a good liquid nitrogen death. There's also a great one in Jason X,
right.
However terrible that movie is.
I think it's also worth noting Keats' choice of music, which seems to be soft rock.
Not heavy, but, like pretty standard butt rock.
Mm-hmm.
After he drops Keats and his head shatters, he walks away, stepping on Keats's frozen ear, and we fade out to the sound of him typing away on a keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
We open, ladies and gentlemen, on perhaps the best outline of a dead body ever done on screen. Not only is it an outline of a body, but they mark all the bits of his head all over the floor with little tape. It is the funniest thing.
Fun with that bit for sure.
Oh my God. It is one of the best scenes. And if anyone was around when we first started, I threw up that picture for the Facebook group photo for a couple months, but I can't get enough of that. It's so funny. So, Scully and Mulder are now at the scene, of course. It's a crime scene. Scully's explaining what happens when tissue is exposed to something this cold. She's seen it on fish before, but not human. Mulder asks to see the computer, but is locked out. He can see there's a lot of users and notes that the last user logged in after Keats and worked on the document attached to Arthur Grable's name. They worked on it for about 5 hours, and he was the first scientist to die, so that's suspicious. Mulder guesses the password because, of course, that's the number Roland was writing when Mulder stole it from him.
It's literally the only clue we've seen so far in this episode, so yeah, of course.
I have a big problem with that, because why would he just be randomly writing that number?
You know, I am okay with that. Again, the notion of the fallible villain, you know, that they're not a supervillain, that they occasionally will let things go. It says to me that Arthur's control of Roland is not absolute, that there are times where stuff sort of bleeds between those two worlds. I'm okay with that.
That's fair. So Mulder guesses that password. They view the fluid dynamic equations that Arthur was working on, and someone is continuing it since he died. We cut to another dreaming sequence of Roland, but this time it's different. One of a little boy waving goodbye to someone. We see a woman taking another young boy who looks identical, putting him in a car. He's crying, being taken away by a woman in a green coat. There's grayscale going on here with some nice color correction. He is awoken by the caretaker. His visitors, his very nice visitors, are back.
Yes. Apparently the caretaker has some mental challenges of her own.
She forgot who Mulder and Scully were in the day.
These two agents...
The 5 hours it's been
These
since
two agents I've never seen before have come to talk to you. They're nice.
They're from the FBI.
Maybe that's the thing. She's not a caretaker. She's the resident. And she's more put together than the others.
These people, they're just left here to their own devices. No one's watching over them. Roland beckons her over, and he says he's not supposed to talk to them. She chalks it up to him being shy and tells him they're very nice people. Mulder takes this opportunity to go through Roland's closet. He makes a nice attempt. I like seeing Mulder like this. He's trying to relate to Roland.
I do too.
He picks him out some clothes, but Roland asks for a green shirt, possibly because of the dream he just had.
Oh, is he wearing a green shirt in the dream?
No, the lady in the coat.
Flashback. Yeah. This aside, this almost throwaway business of Roland saying, I'm not supposed to talk to them. I mean, I think that's Arthur telling him.
It is. I at least that's where I took it.
Yeah. But it's interesting that they don't follow up on that at all. Because, like, are they just assuming that it's the lab telling him not to talk to anybody?
Yeah. I would imagine it's where he's working saying don't talk to people because there's an investigation going. I don't know. It's weird. But yes, I did catch that as well. I think it's Arthur trying to be like, I don't want to talk to people.
That's fine.
They're trying to ruin my plans.
Yeah. Yeah, Arthur's not all there, is he? He's definitely...
He's there. We'll get to it. So Mulder asks Roland about his job.
So do you like your job at the college, Roland?
Yes.
I hear you're very good at it. Do you remember how you got your job?
Man talked to Mrs. Stody.
What man?
Dr. Grable.
Was Dr. Grable nice to you?
Yes.
When was the last time you spoke to him? Last week? Day before?
Dr. Grable died.
I'm sorry.
Yes. People die. They go away. And they're not supposed to come back.
Which is an intriguing line. I don't know if you caught that one.
I did catch it. I'm surprised Mulder didn't catch it.
Yeah, he didn't really latch onto that like I thought he would.
Yeah.
We cut to Scully talking to the caretaker. Has Roland ever mentioned Arthur? We see Tracy sweeping in the back, and Scully asks for the patient history. That's somewhat important, I guess.
I gotta say that the camera is trying to get us to think that Tracy's important, but that never comes around either.
Mm-mm. She's just kind of eavesdropping on the situation.
Yeah, okay, I'll go with that.
So we cut to the studying. Mulder says Roland was hired by Grable because he was specifically looking to hire a mentally challenged individual. They're throwing theories around at each other.
Mm-hmm.
He comes up with the idea that Grable wanted to kill his partners and set it up so the least likely suspect would be Roland. Okay.
Implying, of course, that Grable is still alive.
Yeah. Yes. Scully points out he's super dead from the car accident photo. And Mulder suggests maybe he staged it, which directly contradicts his view on faking your own death in shadows. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It does. He gives her the same argument. You know how hard it is to fake your own death, Scully. But he's all on board with that in this episode for some reason.
Well, listen, just because it didn't work in that episode doesn't mean it can't work in this episode.
True. So Scully reads the obituary aloud, and Mulder notes they're both from Seattle, and the identity of Roland's parents has been sealed by the courts. They then determine that both Arthur and Roland were born on the same day. We are making progress, people. This case is falling together.
It'll be just 40 minutes until it's solved.
We cut back to the halfway house. We're going back there again. Tracy and Roland are coloring and talking. They have a nice, adorable little conversation about flying, and Tracy explains that people can do anything in their dreams. She once dreamt, she's hitting on Roland here. She's
not
pretty smooth. She once dreamt that they were married. Ooh, baby.
Just had this idea, Roland. What if you proposed to me and we got married?
She like hands over a K Jewelers catalog.
Yeah. Well, just pretend. It'll be fine.
I'll get you a twist tie from the bread. When she starts asking about his dreams, he becomes very bothered. And as soon as she mentions Arthur, he gets another vision of him throwing her to the ground and strangling her. He screams in horror, pushes her out of the way, runs to the bathroom, crying and telling her to stay away. He doesn't want to hurt her. Tracy is crying immediately and apologizing for doing nothing wrong. But it's an intense scene. We get to see some very good acting here.
It is.
This is very good. It's showing different sides to Roland that are intense and
it's a very
sad, a little heartbreaking, but also showing us that Ivanek can do his job.
It's also showing us that Roland has some agency, that he's not just this puppet that can be he's definitely mindlessly controlled from time to time, maybe when his defenses are down, but he's got resistance to this invader in his mind. And that will, of course, come up at the very end of the episode.
We come back from commercial, and we are on a photograph. It's of all the doctors working at the propulsion lab. They almost look like hippies.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's just who they were or if they're just having fun. But
well, that would have been 20 odd years ago. So I'd buy it that they've been doing this in a long time.
I buy the shagginess and stuff, definitely, but some of it looks a little fake, like they were posing
it's
like it was just Halloween or something. Nolette explains to Mulder and Scully that he was once flunked by a professor, so they played a prank on him by taking his car apart and putting it together in his office. Aside from the believability of that, we move on to that it was all Arthur's idea.
That tale is actually apocryphal. Like it's been, I've heard it before
I've heard of similar stuff.
Yeah, but
taking it apart and putting it on the roof or something. But I think a crane was involved. Yeah,
I can't imagine that happens quickly though. Like that's part of the idea of the pranks. It's got to happen reasonably quickly, or else you'll be discovered. But that feels like they're setting the stage. They're telling us it's a prank. But I gotta ask, what relevance is it to the plot that they bring that up?
I think it's a way for him to tell them how creative and clever Arthur is. Like, it's not necessary, but I think that's all it is. It's like, because they immediately latch onto that. Well, could he be orchestrating Roland to be the fall guy for these murders?
Okay. Yeah, I'll buy that.
And could he have faked his death? I really think that's all it is.
Yep.
Honestly.
It gives us a little something to chew on. It gives us a little nugget of doubt so that we're not immediately, well, but we know as the audience what's going on.
Yeah.
Like we have seen this happen, and we know who the bad guy is. So like for them to give us this,
we?
I suppose it's just giving us a bit of background on Arthur Grable. So.
Well, the audience listening to this podcast knows who the bad guy is.
Well,
because we've said it.
Well, sure, but I think even...
we keep calling Roland Arthur, but...
Yeah. Well, I think, though, even in the watching of the episode, if you didn't know it was Arthur, you knew that Roland was directly involved. Like, you knew he was the bad guy because you've seen him kill 2 people so far. But you don't know that he is being directed by somebody else. Right. So that's introducing Arthur.
Yeah.
And connecting them and getting us enough information that we start to realize who these people are.
Yeah. So essentially, ladies and gentlemen, that's where that scene goes. They talk about the picture and how clever Arthur is, and once Mulder presses him on could Arthur be faking his death and posing or putting Roland in the position of being the bad guy, Nolet gets a little defensive and says, "You're way off base." From here, we go to the Cryo Avalon Foundation.
They're going to go look at a brain.
We see cylinders that supposedly contain human heads, and Arthur is in one of them, his remains. They're being stored in the event they figure out how to revive their clients. And the scientist here explains that the tech is progressing very fast, surprisingly. Mulder notes small fluctuations in temperature in Arthur's tank, but he's told it's not an issue. He asks if the brain itself could be causing the issue and is shot down. Scully then asks to see some records as the doctor begins talking about the requirements for this program. Arthur's tank once again begins to fluctuate. Scully finds out that Grable only had one donor listed, Roland.
Side note, do you know how cold minus 320 Fahrenheit is?
I don't.
Other than being super cold, obviously.
I would imagine it's a much larger number.
Yeah, it's like minus 200 Celsius. But, I mean, when it gets to really, really cold figures, like not that I'm any kind of scientist, but I've always looked at kelvins where I know that 0 is absolute 0. It's 77 kelvins. It's like super cold. So it's pretty cold.
Once we find out that Roland is the only donor, we cut, ladies and gentlemen. We are treated to yet another scene. And this one at the regional office. Tailor-made for our boy Andrew here. They wanted one more of these for the season before we left. So we didn't leave dissatisfied, right? We got some computer technology magic going on here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this one's a good one.
Mulder is giving a technician some specifications as she constantly is typing. So you got to love when amazing effects are happening as the person is typing things on the keyboards, as if that's how computers work.
Yeah.
Well, they've got a picture of Grable, and he's obviously got glasses, beard, and long hair. They remove the beard, the glasses, they recede his hair, thin his face, and voila, it's fucking Roland.
Yeah, it's remarkable bullshit, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if only they had gone, can you just zoom in a bit and enhance that?
It's egregious. But
I mean, obviously they've just faded between pictures that they already had. I know why they needed to do it. I'm sure there's another way they could have got there, though. Like, find another picture of Arthur Grable.
Right.
You know, find one without him and a beard. Easy done.
I don't know, man. I think this was the best way to do it.
The only way. They needed...
Completely believable.
You know what they needed to have is a side-by-side of Roland and Arthur Grable. And then, you know, the transmogrification can happen. And then there'd be a blinking 100% match icon coming up at the end.
Bing, bing. Could not be anyone else.
And then the technician would look at them and say, it's a match.
Oh, my dear Lord.
And Mulder would say, I can read a fucking computer. Good job.
Can I get a printout of that?
Yeah. And your phone number.
So the camera is lingering on the computer of Roland's face, or Arthur's face, to be honest. And then it fades to Roland's face. Mulder's there, and he's telling him, or asking him to tell him about his dreams. He says he won't tell anyone. Roland is now curled into a ball, scared and unresponsive.
You know, I had a dream last night. I dreamt I was swimming in this pool, and I could see my father underwater. But when I dove down, the water stung my eyes. And there was another man at the pool, watching me. He upset me. He was asking me questions I didn't want to answer. And I had to leave. I couldn't find my father.
I can't tell you my dreams.
Why not?
Bad.
Your dreams are bad, Roland. Not you. You're a good person.
I hit Tracy.
Your dreams make you hit Tracy. You know how to work this toy, Roland?
Yeah.
I see the way you work that toy. Just like what's happening to you. You're the spaceship, Roland. And your dreams are the controls.
Who runs the controls?
That's more than IQ 70, I think.
It
That's
might be.
some deep-seated existentialism right there.
Mulder then shocks him out of whatever state he's in and holds up a picture of Arthur Grable. And that was obviously a great move.
He's a nice man.
Yeah, we get a flash of the kid being taken away again. The boys are being separated. And then the flash of Tracy being strangled. Roland flips out. Mulder tries to calm him down. He runs up to the bathroom once again. Mulder tells the caretaker and Scully that they need to arrange to keep him under surveillance. They hear a glass break and realize he's breaking out of the bathroom. He's gone.
Can I ask, okay, so Arthur Grable is a psychopath. Like, why kill Tracy?
She's asking too many questions. Yeah, he's just nuts.
I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, because it's like, I get wanting to kill the scientists. They have stolen Grable's work. Well, okay, I know you want to dive into that later, and it is a worthy point to discuss. But I mean, Tracy makes no sense. Whereas I can find a reason for the scientists. But
he's probably like, no, Roland is mine.
That's right. You can't have him. Only I can have him.
Ish.
Yeah, it's strange. I also think it's worth spending a few minutes talking about Mulder's dream that he relates to Roland. Because it's the closest we get to character development for Mulder in this episode. And I think it's interesting where he's saying, my father was in a pool. I couldn't get down there because the water stung my eyes. And there was another man asking me questions. So first of all, I'll ask, did you derive anything from this? Or did you just sort of see it as Mulder, trying to get Roland to open up?
I think he probably had a similar dream at some point in his life. If not the exact same thing, but I think he may have altered it to fit this, to get him to talk to someone asking him questions, to help him tell Roland that it's okay that you don't understand what's happening right now. I'm here to help you. I think he's just trying to do whatever he can to relate to Roland and help him open up.
So you don't draw anything from this dialogue to think that maybe Mulder is giving us the viewer something, that.
I think he could be. I don't discount it. I haven't ever really put too much stock into it.
Okay, you can think about it as the episode goes on. If something occurs to you, we can. I was wondering if the man asking him questions, if that could be interpreted as either Deep Throat or Cigarette Smoking Man. Where our antagonist was somehow preventing him from finding his father.
Well, I think the antagonist was the water stinging his eyes. We are at the Mahan Propulsion Laboratory again. It is now nighttime. Mulder and Scully are looking for Nolette, but he's nowhere to be found. Mulder asks Scully if she has a brother, and she notes she has two.
Mm-hmm.
Very important for fans of the show, because this is the last time until, of course, most importantly, season 10, when that's the plot hole they want to cinch up. He asks her, have you ever been thinking of your brother, of calling them all day, and then suddenly they call you. And this is his way of explaining to her that psychic connections can exist between siblings and are even stronger between twins who share the same womb. Scully makes somewhat of an off-color joke here.
Oh, yeah. Not her finest hour.
Mulder proposes that Grable is in a state of consciousness that no one has ever returned from. And what if that state allows him to explore the frontier that a living, breathing human does not have the time for, or that their consciousness will not allow them to explore?
31 minutes in, finally, we have him using a superpower.
Yeah, you know what? It's different. He's putting it together with us.
Yeah.
So essentially, he's got the ability to control his brother and kill those scientists. She agrees to the theory to move the case along, and they continue searching for Nolette. Of course, we cut. Nolette has been watching them from a security room. This camera in the hall has audio capabilities, surprisingly. So he's heard everything they've said.
I don't mind that because it is a high security installation. Like their guards,
I suppose.
They do a lot of work there. I'm all right with that.
It's all right. I'm not saying it's the worst thing in the world, but I just...
Yeah.
As he listens to them and watches them walk away, we are unsure if he understands what they're saying. But then he takes off his glasses and rubs his chin. So now we know.
Oh, he knows.
He super knows what they're doing and what's going on
and
now.
we know what he knows, and he knows
everything.
We know what he's going to do.
Yeah. Cut to the cryo, ladies and gentlemen. Nolette is breaking in with his card and a foil gum wrapper.
High security.
Yeah. I think this contradicts 100% what you were just saying, Andrew.
Yeah.
They have security cameras with audio capabilities, but you can break in with a fucking Bazooka Joe.
Well, maybe this is not on the same campus. I'm guessing it is.
I think it's pretty close. If it's not, I don't know.
Yeah, they don't show a lot of passage of time. You know what the problem with his plan is? He needed to disable all the canisters, not just Grable.
Yeah, he was way too focused on Grable.
And now, Grable kicking it, they're going to know. So, sloppy plan, Nolette.
To clarify, he approaches Arthur's tank and sabotages it. We watch the temperature slowly start to increase, and he leaves. We fade to Roland working on things, more calculations on the ground of the Institute. He's doing everything in pen on a notebook, and he's writing with both hands.
Yeah, he's seriously savant there. He's kicking it.
Super creepy.
But we do have these interesting flashes.
Yes.
That tie back to the increase in temperature.
Yes. We cut to the FBI. Scully receives a fax about Arthur and Roland. It's their birth certificates. They were identical twins. Single egg, single sperm. Scully says it's possible that Roland's condition is the result, of course, of damaged chromosomes or cells. This is when she gets a call from the cryo lab, and they tell her Arthur Grable's tank has been sabotaged. Uh-oh. And suddenly Mulder goes, Nolette. Like he just knows.
See, if he'd done all of them, then they would have been, they wouldn't have called the FBI.
Yep. Back in the engine control room working is Roland. He's making progress, but is having some difficulties due to that temperature increase. Eventually, he reaches over Mach 15, and a bell sounds like he's at a circus.
He won a prize. Yeah.
Nolette arrives behind him and pulls a gun on him. They exchange words. Roland,
quick point,
as Arthur.
I just wanted to say, nice touch that Roland is sweating.
Yes.
Okay, now you may continue.
Why?
Because the temperature is going up in the tank.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fair. Good point. I never thought of it that way. All right.
Yeah.
Good call.
Thank you.
Roland screams about how this is his work, and Nolette explains the entire plot to kill him. And it's amazing how Arthur's doing all the work, and he will get all the glory. He can't help but get swept up in his joy. As Nolette begins typing the rest of Arthur's equations on the computer, he gets distracted. Roland takes this opportunity, or actually I should say Arthur, to knock him out with a keyboard. Mulder and Scully arrive outside the building. They rush to show their ID badges to be let in. Roland has now put Nolette into the chamber like Sir now. Nolette, of course, becomes conscious moments before the engine turns on, and Roland's working the controls. He tries to demand Roland open the door, but Nolette is out of luck. He rushes to the mesh screen, as we saw in the beginning, and the wind, of course, increases. Mulder and Scully arrive to try to plead with him to stop. Mulder keeps calling him Arthur, and Scully calls him Roland, and that seems to break through. She says, you have to help him or he's going to die, and this is when things change. Roland comes through and makes some adjustments just in time to stop the engine as Nolette is flying through the air. He lives because he turned it off just in the nick of time to drop him in the middle of the floor. I don't know if I believe that one.
This thing's got great brakes. It's a great jet turbine, and it's got great brakes.
Oh boy.
Truly a marvel of modern technology.
And it is at this moment that we get a very graphic and gruesome shot of Arthur's cryotank reaching 150 degrees and flatlining. I still have nightmares about it.
That's very much thrown in there, isn't it? Like, you needed to know that Arthur Grable is dead now.
Yeah. That's the end of this scene. We fade to the halfway house. The police are there to take Roland away. Scully tells the caretaker he will be held until they decide if they are going to charge him or not. Mulder reveals what happened, and she's dumbfounded to learn that Roland completed the calculations. Roland, in a sweet scene, is in his room packing some clothes and is looking nice with his little suit on. Tracy comes in asking him not to go. He gives her his stars. She cries and says she loves him. He reciprocates this time. He goes to the bathroom as Mulder and Scully wait. He grabs a hairbrush, sweeps his hair to the side. Looks a little bit more like Arthur, I think. Takes a long look in the mirror as if he's making sure he's himself. And then it's credits.
Yeah, I got that too. That they definitely wanted to imply that this is, there's a lingering villain in there. Because like all bad X-Files writers, they just can't let them go. They just can't. Maybe they'll bring him back for a sequel episode. They've done it with Toombs.
Roland 2.0.
That's right.
His IQ is now 80.
Yeah, he's building another engine. He's going to shred more scientists.
All right, so that's it. Final thoughts.
Again, the performances are what excel it from good to great. I think it draws a lot from pop culture, though, in a way that I feel is a bit lazy. Like, they didn't need to make him this number savant. That the whole thing of him being able to count the stars, like, I kind of get what they're trying to do there, but it doesn't add to the episode. It sort of just shows that he can be special too, and sure, that's great, but he could also just be special because he's a nice guy, I look at the deaths in this episode and think, like, Arthur Grable's is pretty messed up.
Yeah.
That these are the things that he's going to do to kill the people, like, not just, subtly engineer their deaths. Their deaths are gory and beyond the pale. It's exceptional. So if anything, I wish they'd padded that out a bit and give us a bit more knowledge of who Grable's was and why he would descend to this point. It's not strictly necessary, but I don't know. I kind of miss that. And we see it by extension. And I feel like, okay, that's our takeaway, is that Grable's did not deserve to live. And I guess the creepy look in the mirror at the end, that's also pretty great, but gives us that impression that maybe he's not done for. Maybe he psychically transmitted himself into Roland's body at the end.
I've always viewed that scene as Arthur's completely dead. That's my opinion. I viewed it as Roland kind of making sure he's himself. Like, he's taken that extra moment to think about it and just make sure he is who he is. And I mean, not that he's super introspective for obvious reasons, but I mean, experienced some weird stuff. So maybe he's just gathering himself.
Well, we see Scully and Mulder looking at him as he's doing this. So, yeah, I buy it. I'm looking at it again. I see what you're saying, that he's
just kind of composing himself and assuring himself he's himself kind of thing.
Yep, I buy that.
That's just how I viewed it.
Well, what about you, Mike? Did you have more you wanted to add here?
Yeah, we can't really say more of the same. Underrated, yes, very much so. And even by me, I don't readily think of this one when someone asks me for a great episode from The X-Files or from even season 1. But this is pretty good. And I alluded to this in Born Again. But what really sucks is that this episode treats its characters with, at least Roland and Tracy, it treats them with great care. And it makes some of the flaws of the episode, for example, that it rehashes ideas from Born Again, the previous episode, by the way, and Shadows.
Yeah.
And even in ways, Lazarus, like, we've mentioned before, it makes those flaws kind of fade away. Ivanek does such a good job. And what bothers me the most about it is that this is the last of these episodes, right? So by this point, the audience is like, this is a really stale idea. Why are we doing this again? And that diminishes this episode. And that bothers me because I would have rather the season been 2 episodes shorter and only had this episode that delves into the psychokinesis, ghosts controlling other people, getting its revenge thing. And it would have been that much better, right? We couldn't say that it was a stale idea at that point. Maybe science fiction as a whole, maybe. But this episode doing it for the 3rd or 4th time in the season, it's like, well, it makes a truly good episode less impactful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and especially, as you say, on the heels of Born Again, which...
Right on the heels. It's like, what the fuck?
Well, I got to imagine, they have a season commitment. They have to do a certain number of episodes. Yeah. And they probably had 100 episode ideas, and they culled the ones which were going to be too expensive or, weren't going to work or they didn't want to do. They didn't want to do a werewolf episode. Well, I guess they kind of did, but you know what I mean? Like they wanted to do a certain number and it came down to this. And then when it's all shaken out, they happen to have 3 episodes which kind of touch on similar ideas, but are different enough, even in tone. Like Born Again is quite a different episode than
it is.
I mean, it talks about vulnerable protagonists, that aren't in control. They don't have agency. They don't really have control over their actions until they're released at the end. It's funny. I hadn't even noticed the direct parallels between Born Again and Roland, but it's maybe because the sort of environment in which the episodes take place is just completely different. We have this cop background for Born Again and this science episode for Roland. So they do feel different, but they totally do draw on the same material.
And to be fair, they are different, but their cores are the same, I would venture to say.
I agree with you.
Vengeful ghosts. So other than that, I mean, there are small quibbles with the episode. I think Nolette's turn to the dark side at the end is a little okay.
No, I always viewed him as a sleazy character. I was not surprised to see that coming.
No, I wasn't surprised, but I was just like, he could have, it would have been a less engaging episode, I guess, if he wasn't pure evil. But that being said, Arthur Grable is awful.
Yeah.
The way they set it up in the episode that Mulder and Scully initially latch onto is that he needs someone, and why not a mentally handicapped person, to pin these murders on. But that, some of it's a little confusing. It's either he knew he was going to die and he needed someone to be able to invade because he knew he was going to be on cryo, or he was actually going to kill his partners and pin it on Roland, and he knew his brother. It's like, it's a little convoluted.
We don't get the virtue of seeing the backstory.
Right.
Which would have been super helpful to explain that point. I actually go with the latter, that he was Well, no, I can't even
It's
do that
hard.
because like they're twins.
Yeah.
Like he would have taken one look at Roland and go, Jesus Christ, that's you. We've been separated after all this time. Like I actually at first looked at it like he's
being
specifically
courteous.
found Roland because he somehow figured out where he lived, and he's like, "You're my long lost brother. We're finally reunited. I'm going to get you this job so we can work together."
Yeah.
I actually think maybe, and again, I wish they had delved a bit to show us this in flashback or whatever so that it would make sense, so that we can see he was actually a really good guy until he got tragically cut down in his bus accident or whatever it was. And then in cryosleep, he turns into this psychopath that, you know, through Roland is able to see that his work is being stolen. And then he decides to hatch his plan.
And I think that's what they're going for. But it seems like, and they're positioning him initially as this guy who's setting up this thing, which then leads us to believe by the end of the episode that maybe the whole time he was using Roland, which may or may not be the case. I'm with you in the sense that I wanted him to be a good guy trying to help out his brother. And then once he was dead, things changed in cryosleep or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, he becomes the worst person on the planet. I don't even think his scientist pals deserve any of this, to be honest. And it's really, he's just pissed off that he's not alive anymore. That's all it is. It's like,
that's an acceptable motivation, provided you...
There are some people like that, for sure.
No, I think if you allow that character to express that, then that is enough to justify the rage. Like, if you're alive, you've got things to lose, right? As a character. So things that prevent you from just going off and shooting people, it's because you'll go to jail or you might get shot and killed yourself. You know, you've got things to lose. But if you're dead, all your priorities change. So
that's true. I mean, he's putting his brother out there to be horrible. Let's say they do press charges. You have just ruined.
Well, but again, I think
your brother's life. If we go with our motive here, where he's trying to be a nice guy when he was alive to his brother, now he's setting him up for a lifetime of incarceration. It's like, come on.
Well, he occupies a weird space as a monster of the week. You know, he's kind of a ghost in that he is possessing Roland, and he's kind of alive because he's a brain trapped in a box. So, I mean, if he was a ghost, it would be easy, right? The ghost trope is that you've got an unfulfilled passion, you know, something that has to finish for you to move on. So in this case, the finishing was the Mach 15 super secret science stuff. You know, if he can do that, then he's completed his objective. And after that, it would be that he would be known for the discovery, not Nolet. That is the crisis point for him, right? And I fully believe that he is able to become a psychopath because the universe has maligned him by cutting him down in his prime before he was able to make that conclusion. So there's enough stymied passion there that he could certainly use this one channel that's available to him. And we don't really know what he feels about Roland. He might be like, yes, I love you because you're my brother, but you know, I'm the brains here, and I have no compunction about using you for your, you know, ambulatory body.
Which very possible. Okay. I think we've dissected this one pretty well at the end here. Do we have any listener comments?
We got a couple of comments, actually. Yeah, we do. Bruce Statler says, and I'm going to assume this is what Bruce sounds like, Roland is one of my favorite episodes. I don't even really know why. The only thing that never made much sense to me was Arthur killing his parents. Oh, no, partners, not parents. That would have been a different episode entirely. He died in a car accident. He wasn't murdered. If he were murdered, it would have made more sense to me. It's like he was just pissed off that he died and didn't get to finish his work, which I totally understand. But to kill off your partners, couldn't he have somehow convinced them that he was Arthur and continued on with the work? Yes, absolutely. I mean, we were just discussing this point, and I totally agree with it.
I lean on the side that it's just Arthur wanting to finish first. He wants to get it done and actually get the glory, because whether he's thought it out or not, he views it as he's going to finish it and it's his work.
Maybe he's just that guy who's like constantly talking down. It's like, that is not how you do a fluid equation. No, that. Let me show you how the real mathematicians work.
Well, that is the episode, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Let's Roland out.
No. I just did that at the front, and you told me I couldn't.
I thought you said let's Roland in.
No, I said we're Roland, and you said you can't use the thing for the thing because it's not a real pun, and I agree with you. But
oh, you're right. Okay. Well, once we get into better titles, we're going to have a pun fest. We've had it's been a desert for this past couple.
Yeah. You have been bringing up the rear, sir.
I'm at it. This sucks.
Forget it. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please rate and review on your podcast app of choice. Andrew and I would be eternally grateful to you fine people for helping us expand and get the word out. Also, we've got a killer group on Facebook. Feel free to join in on the discussion at facebook.com/groups/thisisnothappeningpod and become an official member of the syndicate. We do polls and we have questions for every episode to give you guys the opportunity to chime in and possibly let your voice be heard on our recordings. And please join us on our new Twitter at tinhxfilespod, no dash, to stay up to date on everything, moment to moment. Thank you, and remember, don't stop swimming. It's that time, everyone, the Magus Media Production sales pitch. Please check out our homepage at magusmediaproductions.net so you can stay up to date on all of our shows. Check out our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/magusmediaproductions, both of which have our Discord link on it, where you can join us for live shows as we record them for future release. At Magus Media Prods on X, our Patreon, patreon.com/magusmedia, where a $5 donation will help us keep the lights on and bringing you new content, and you get some stickers. Thank you for your consideration and support.